Hey guys, so what is redundancy protection? So redundancy protection, or fallback, is really what do you do when a disaster strikes or something fails. So we've got here 6 things that you should have planned or have in place for a failure. Now, I've touched on this from a kind of global perspective as a trader, like saying, hey, you know what, make sure that you've got this and you've got that. But it's super important as a scalper, because if you don't have this, it can cost you a fortune, because you're leveraged up in size, you're trading kind of from small price movements. So number 1 is stops. And I've put non-local here. What do I mean by that? So what I mean by that is that you have a stop loss not situated on your local machine. So you have your stop loss with a broker on the exchange or somewhere, so that if your machine goes down, you're still coming out of the position. Now, we're going to talk about stops in a separate video, but generally speaking, you will have a global stop loss, i.e. a larger stop loss, and then you'll be scalping out of the position. So you've got a kind of worst case scenario stop that is a real sort of emergency break, if you like, but you actually won't never use that unless this thing happens. And the point of non-local is that some, and not very many these days to be fair to you, but some do still have stops resting on your machine, and they get pinged and they get sent to the exchange or sent to your broker when that hits when the market hits your price. You don't want that. You want it resting with your broker or on the exchange. All right, so that's for your stop losses. Number 2 is the connection fallback. Big on this, guys, and I speak from experience here. You need to have a connection. You need to know what you're going to do if that connection goes down. So do you have a second line installed? Do you have a 4G phone that you can tether your computer to? If so, get that ready, know the procedure to do that, and make sure that that works, either your laptop or your computer. You can use this and tether to it so that you've got a connection fallback, so you can close positions. You won't necessarily want to trade from that, but you've got a connection fallback. You need to know that if the line goes down, you can do something. So you also want to have the telephone number of your broker and your account number. And now, guys, it won't surprise you to know that the line goes down, like, oh, what's my broker's phone number? www.mybroker. Of course, my connection's gone. So you don't even know your broker. I don't even know your account numbers. Just having them on a bit of paper. Hey, this is the phone numbers for it. This is my account number. This is all my details. Have it there. There's your connection fallback thing. You know that, right, connection's gone down. I can't get out. I can't connect via tethering. I haven't got a spare thing. Right, my connection fallback is ring the broker. Can you close all my positions, please, sir? Thank you very much. Goodbye. That's still connection fallback. So just having that, and it's super important with scalping, guys, because you can get absolutely hammered if your connection goes down. You're in a big position, you don't know what's going on, you can't get in touch with them, and you're in trouble. So broker fallback. If a broker goes down or you can't trade, you need to do something about it, right? You can't rely on them to be up 100% of the time, and I've talked about this before, and I've said, hey, you know what, in a fast market condition, they may well pull the plug. So what do you do if a broker goes down? You need a secondary broker. You need a second broker with funds in so that you can take an opposite position to the one you've got, so you know you're neutral from that point. So let's say you've got a large position on Euro US dollar, then all of a sudden the broker goes down. It might not even be a fast market, guys. It might just be a tech problem at their end. You can't get through to them. You can't close the position. What do? You go, right, I know my other broker, mybroker2.com. You log in, you take an opposite position. So now you're neutral. Yes, you're going to have to do some shuffling around of funds potentially after it. But the main priority is that you stop any potential damage, because you could be in a massive position, news comes out, and it just completely decimates your account because you're in such aggressive size with scalping. So just being aware of that one. So the fourth one here is your exchange fallback. Now this is only really, if you're trading on exchange like the NYC or NYMEX or Eurex or Globex, whatever it may be, and this happens super rarely now. It used to be more of an occurrence, but it still makes sense to have, you know, these failure positions in, you know, ideas in place, or procedures, should I say, in place. Just like, you know, Pilot has, you know, a massive different file full of different procedures, like, oh, if the hydraulics on this fails, do this, the engine fails, do this, so they know what to do. You don't want to have to be making stuff up on the fly. So exchange fallback is, okay, I've placed a trade, 10 lots on crude oil, on the crude oil front month contract, NYMEX goes down. What do I do? You need to have a plan. Your plan should be, right, I know I can trade a CFD with my other broker, and I can place a position automatically the other side of that to negate the move. So if you've got that position size, you say, right, I need to do £100 a point. If my spread bet, that means at least I know I'm neutral. If crude oil suddenly hammers to the downside, I'm not going to get battered. And don't think I'll just ride it out, guys, because, you know, I know it's kind of think, well, I'll just see what happens. You know, might go up, might go down. Then you're going into the gambling thing, and there's just no point. There'll be nothing more. There's nothing more annoying than saying I could have come out of that, but end up losing £5 because I left it when I could have just negated the problem. So exchange fallback, so it's similar to broker fallback, but slightly different, because if you can't trade on the exchange, you need to trade something else. So, and that also, let's say you might not have to use that broker. Let's say NYMEX goes down, you might be able to then trade USO, which is the ETF for crude oil. If, let's say, Eurex goes down, you can't trade DAX, or you can't trade, or whatever it may be, you might be able to trade something similar, like maybe you could trade FTSE, so you can limit that loss, because the European indices generally might move in sync over an hour period. They're probably pretty similar, and so you can kind of mitigate any loss by doing that. So just having an idea, it's super important for scalping, guys. Right, number 5, a power fallback. Depending on where you are in the world, power cuts might be a regular thing for you. Fortunately, pretty rare in the UK. Do happen, of course, from time to time. Storms, snow, people stealing copper from substations. We've had that kind of stuff. Well, yeah, whatever. But you need a power fallback. That is probably going to be a laptop with a phone, because don't forget, your router will go down if your power goes down, so you won't be able to get internet connection either. If you've got a screen-based system, desktop-based system with screens, that'll go down. So unless you have one of those backup power things, then you probably need a laptop, which you can run on battery, and a phone, so you can tether your laptop to your phone, which won't need power. 2 things that can run off battery, that can at least keep you connected to reduce your position size down to 0. Right, number 6 is U fallback. Sounds a bit macabre, I know, but if you suddenly slump over your screen because you've overdone the scalping, have you got a procedure for that? Does your husband, does your wife, if you're trading from home, know that if you're slumped over the screen, they need to close your positions? Now, okay, you're going to say, well, that's probably the last thing on your mind, right? If you're slumped over your screen, you've passed out from something, you've had a stroke, you've had, God forbid, something has happened to you. Maybe, right? But the last thing you want is for it to be health, number 1, of course, always. But if there's something, you've got a hotkey on there, it's close all positions, and all your partner or your husband and wife needs to do is go Control X, and it takes you out of positions, then at least you know that's why. The last thing you want is to kind of wake up in hospital a day later or whatever it may be and think, oh, I've got a position on, I had a massive position on the DAX, I had a massive position on crude oil, and wondering why that happened, and wiping out your account because you stopped it and go through or whatever. So it sounds a bit overkill, I know, but a U fallback. What happens if you can't actually operate your station, your trade station? Maybe it's a case of they ring up the broker and say, hey, you know, so-and-so, Mr. Smith's ill, can you close his positions for him? Now, whether or not they would do, I don't know, they might have to pre-authorize that. Anyway, this is a really unlikely event, right, guys? But hey, we're traders, yeah? We need to look out for this black swan events, this tail risk. You don't want to be knocked out by something and then come back later and realize you've lost 100 grand out of your account because you just could have mitigated that risk by closing it. So anyway, guys, redundancy protection, quick thing to do, but once it's done, at least you know the procedure, because it's super important for scalping, because you can get pretty hammered if you get it wrong.